So a couple lucky coin flips on the volatile rig last game. I think we actually played that game quite well, considering that it took the opposite odds aid to win. Which like we had a position where we could have let our volatile rig die and then sort of opposite odds aid it back. But I think our line was better. We were able to use turn to get through some damage, then dispel the Orzhov charm with extort to get an even more damage. Wrath's team creates that situation where the coin flip kind of where we with the coin flip we kept our 4/4, and he had, I believe, 0 cards in hand at the time because of mental vapors, or very little in hand. So it kind of put us in a position where we were able to take a victory from the jaws of defeat. Certainly, game one, our opponent probably should have just attacked with his Tithe Drinker. I think it didn't matter. I think we had lethal no matter what once we drew Void Wielder, because we could sacrifice Void Wielder and another guy to give our, crusade our whole team or whatever. But I think his play was also, suboptimal. I think he probably should have just attacked there. We made some strange plays or weird looking plays at times in that match, but I think they all were to our benefit, as each one sort of helped us advance a little bit further. The opposite odds 8 ended up winning us the match, so that was clearly a reasonable line, and we ended up being decent. So here we go in the finals. We are not going to mulligan, and we are off. See what our opponent has in store for us. Since he's making the finals of this draft, I'm assuming his deck is a little bit better than the two that we've seen previously. I mean, the last two decks we saw were pretty miserable, or not miserable, but not great. The first one I would classify as miserable with the double bellows lizard. The second one, well, I don't think it was terrible. It just was a little clunky. I mean, I don't really like cards like Selesnya Sentry if you don't have green mana. I don't really like a card like the Dagger Drone Imp, really, just in general. So, I mean, his creatures were pretty underpowered, which, I mean, I don't know. It's possible that if we lose a coin flip there, we lose the game. So it's hard for me to criticize too much when we're winning on flips of a coin. But hey, sometimes you got to win a coin flip. Okay, and we're back for the finals. Our opponent appears to be double queuing, so I may pause at times just to save you guys the misery of the double queuing. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully you can play at a reasonable pace. Our hand's pretty good. It is a little annoying that our only black source comes off this Cluestone, but since Executioner's Swing is not a card I'm expecting to have to cast for the next 3 or 4 turns, it should be fine. If he plays like an annoying 2-drop, it's a bit problematic, but we do have inaction into the Sage's Row, so that's not, yeah, and that's not really the type of 2-drop that concerns me overly. Let's go ahead and just cycle our inaction injunction here. It's possible there's a better use for it later, but I don't like that we are a little land light in hand right now. We only have 1 plains as our only land in hand, so I'd rather cycle it just as to get an opportunity to draw a land, make sure we can make our next 4 or 5 land drops or what have you, as opposed to just sort of like waiting on this inaction injunction trick that may or may not matter. An interesting thing that could come up here is if he attacks with Drudge Beetle into Sage's Road Denizen, whether we block or not. Now, if he attacks, he's almost certainly either bluffing a Giant Growth or has a Giant Growth, but since we have this Dispel in our hand, I kind of want to get some decent value out of Dispel. So it's possible that if he slams Drudge Beetle right into Sage's Road Denizen, that we leave open Dispel. I mean, he could have a Blood Rusher, but it seems like saving a Drudge Beetle with a better creature is not really the best play in the world. Okay, we drew a nice one. Go ahead and F6 and let this guy go about his turn. So if we do not draw a land, I think I'm going to just probably play Orzhov Cluestone. If we don't draw a land, if we do draw a land, I'll probably play Sage's Road Denizen. It also really depends on what he does here. If he doesn't have a good play, if he lacks, like a decent play, then, taking a turn off from putting anything on the board by playing Cluestone seems fine. If he plays another 2/2 or something like that, I may actually have to just play the Sage's Road Denizen. just as a to block for a turn or two while I get all my other stuff set up. Still, a lot of this depends on what he plays and what I draw. Um, his deck just seems like Golgari. I imagine there's a good chance that he has Dregmangler in his deck after we passed one kind of late. He probably also has Jared. If you guys remember, in the draft we passed a Jared as well. So those are cards that are relevant to know about that we've passed in the draft. Whenever you get into the later rounds of a draft, sometimes it's good to think about what you passed. Whether there are any bombs or like strong removal spells. The kind of cards that would get your opponent to the finals are the kinds of cards that you care about whether you pass them or not. Round one, I think it's not a huge deal. You don't necessarily need to play around anything in particular. But I think once you get to the finals, you have to operate on the assumption that your opponent has either, played pretty well, gotten pretty lucky, or they have really good cards, or some combination of the three. In our case, I think it's more that we played well and got a little lucky. We certainly do not have anything in our deck on the level of a Jared. But we've got some decent ones. I mean, Volatile Rig has really proven to be one of the best cards in our deck. And like looking at our hand right now, we've got pretty strong cards in general. Sage's Road Denizen is not, great, but I mean, hey, it blocks his Drudge Beetle. So I would not be surprised if we saw a Dregmangler. Apparently, we do not see one. This is interesting. I think our play is just going to be the Cluestone. I think we'd just rather take 2 next turn, and since he played a Mountain, that means that Lavinia of the 10th is going to be pretty awesome. Ooh, what does he have? Okay, Jailbreaker, sure. Can't even attack. The Jailbreaker that can't even attack. Hopefully we can draw a land. Yes, alright. So after having drawn a land, I think what we want to do is just play Volatile Rig, leaving up the Dispel. I mean, if we can clear his board of these 2 guys, I think that's fine. While he doesn't have a... Ooh, didn't even attack. Alright. Alright, let's just slam in, see what happens. He's just going to block with Jailbreaker. So we could turn here. What does turning here accomplish? If we turn, he's going to take 4 and our Volatile Rig's going to live. He's going to take 3 with Trample and his Volatile Rig's going to live. But then we can't really play out our Lavinia of the 10th. We would also be able to leave open Executioner Swing if that were the case. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm okay with turning here. So we'll turn his guy, hit him for 3, just keep our Volatile Rig in play with both an Executioner Swing and an Orzhov Charm available to us. Ordinarily I would be fine with, getting a reasonable trade there, but since our deck is not the most highly powered deck that I've ever seen in this format, our deck's a little awkward. Interesting. He's ground assaulting our guy. That is interesting. So we have the option of Orzhov Charming it back to our hand. Although this is an effect that deals damage, so it's possible that... You know what? I think if he had a good creature, he would have just played it. So I'm assuming that he's kind of on air here. So I'm actually just going to return this now. Just going to return it and replay it. He seems to be having a lot of trouble dealing with it. Let's not tap that. Let's not tap that one. Alright, so we got the rig back. Okay, interesting. Blue mana. Did not expect that. Maybe he has like a Thought Flare or something? Who knows? Frilled Oculus. Okay. So I think here we can play the Lavinia and get in for a bunch. So we get in for 4, and then we have 2 4/4s. And it kind of forces some awkward blocks. Yeah, I think that's fine. The fact that his protection from red is also fairly relevant here, as you know, it's very possible that his only removal spells are red spells. So we'll go ahead and see what happens. We have him to 13. He has got a million mana of every possible color ever. Ooh, a Pilfered Plans. So you have Pilfered Plans or Mental Vapors? I think we're just going to Mental Vapors him here. And we put it on Rig or on Lavinia. I think we'll put it on the Rig. Let's attack with just Volatile Rig. I don't want to really expose Lavinia to combat here. Okay, he's just going to block. Okay, he's going to double block, sure. Alright. Okay. And we'll see if he blows up the whole world or not. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. He did not. Alright. So that's fine. So basically we're on a spot here where we have a Lavinia of the 10th versus a Frilled Oculus, which is pretty good for us. We also have Dispel up, which is kind of nice. Like whatever he's doing here, which is probably like an inspiration. Yeah, that is not. Nope. You are not inspirationing, sir. Not this time. No reason to let him get ahead on cards, sure. If he wants to do this, that's fine with us. It takes up his whole turn. It makes me assume that he probably just didn't draw anything good. He can't really attack us. Okay, or he can attack us, I guess. Sure, man. You got it. No blocks. I don't know if I like this attack out of him. It's pretty aggressive. I mean, yeah, I'll go to like 11 here, but I mean, I can just play a Sage's Rodennison and leave up the Executioner swing. You can also play the Key Rune into the Denizen. This is tough. So right now the way the clock is that we hit for 4, he goes to 9. If we play Key Rune plus Sage's Row, then he's actually dead on board. Or no, he's not dead on board because it will take him to 8. I think we just go. Let's see. Yeah, I think we just go Sage's Row. Sage's Row, attack. And this way we can block with the Sage's Row and then Executioner swing. I think if he had any kind of spell, he would have used it last turn instead of scavenging, because it wasn't a very good scavenge. I mean, it was okay, but here he's in a position where he can't even really attack anymore. Let's see what he does. Carnage Gladiator, sure. It's fine. The guy has protection from red. Okay, cool. Obviously this attack is very good for us. I take 1. His guy takes 2. Let me go ahead and swing it at the end of the turn. Ooh, I have a Kingpin's Pet and an Azorius Kieran. That's pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and attack. Our guy's protection from his guy. He can't even block. Now we can play Kingpin. As well as Keyrune. Sadly can't extort off the Keyrune, but, you know, whatever. Alright, so now he's in a pretty tough spot. We're at 10, so we don't even die to something like an explosive impact here. He's going to attack. I think we just take it. I don't see any reason to block. We can't really die to anything, to any one card at least. He would need to have multiples. Whereas blocking can be kind of bad for us here, just in case he has anything. He has nothing. Okay, cool. So I think we just get to win here. We can attack in the air and play Pilfered Plans, or let's see, Vraska the Unseen. Okay, it's kind of a nice one. All right, so he's clearly on nothing, not on nothing rather. However, if we draw a blue source, we just win. Magic the Gathering. What are you gonna do? Some days, man. Some days. Some days, Magic Online smiles on you. I don't know what to say. Certainly attacking him, despite our lag. Okay. Just confirm that we're making the correct attacks. So he goes to 1, and then we just Pilfered Plans plus Extort. Yeah, so we win game 1 of the final. So he has a Vraska the Unseen. That's pretty annoying, somewhat problematic maybe, but we can't really do much about it. Hopefully the combination of like Mental Vapors and some of our other cards are able to get there. I think the only potential sideboard card based on what we've seen is maybe this Izzet Charm. Might be decent against this guy, but I don't know if I want to bias our deck towards having any more red mana. We do have the one Rakdos Guildgate just to cast Burn. It's never been relevant yet, but it might be relevant at some point. I think we can just roll with what we have.